they come to realize, or fairly early on, wearing the locket, having it close to your skin, next to your skin, has repercussions. Okay? Makes one grouchy. Well, what else? So they're bouncing around the countryside, apparating the countryside. And on page 286 or so, we're told it was much easier to relax when they were comfortably well fed. Next paragraph. This was their first encounter with the fact that a full stomach meant good spirits, an empty one bickering and gloom. Why does Rowling take the time to include that? Because it is kind of important. It's going to come up again later. Okay. But I think it gets back to something that she begins much earlier in the novels, and she kind of emphasizes in book 5 when they're sitting there in Aunt Petunia's kitchen, and Harry has a sudden realization that what he had thought of was 2 separate worlds. Or what? They're one and the same. Okay, so what's this relation to that? Look at this again. A full stomach meant good spirits. Spirits are what? They're not tangible. Okay? Good souls, if you want. Good vibes, good outlook. The flip side is also true. An empty stomach, okay, makes them angry at each other. Okay? I think Rowling is getting at this idea here, you know, that we are literally psychosomatic beings. There's something, not just up here, but something else. But then there's this. C.S. Lewis puts it in Mere Christianity, we're all amphibians. We live in 2 worlds. We live in this world, and then there's the intangible, their attitudes kind of world. Okay? So, yeah.
I know this is going a little bit further ahead, but I was noticing it also when at the end, like, does she have a degree in psychology or anything like that?
Nope.
Like, when Harry's getting ready to die, that's pretty much what everyone does.
Her degrees are in, I want to say classics and French. Pretty sure it's classics and French.
That's what everyone does when they're getting ready to die, when they've accepted it.
Yeah, which we'll talk about. So, page 290. A few days have gone by. They're hungry again. Now, on that previous page, why were they full? Because Hermione had stolen eggs from a barn. She left money. Okay, so it wasn't really stealing, but now they're in a tent on a riverbank in Wales. And Ron says, my mother can make good food appear out of thin air. He prods moodily at the lumps of charred gray fish on the plate. Fish what? That Harry had caught. Hermione had cooked, and what had Ron done?
Just ate it.
Nothing. Complained. Hermione, your mother can't produce, and she goes quoting some, Gamp's Law, etc. Well, speak English. In other words, don't quote me all this. It's impossible to make good food out of nothing. If you know where it is, you can summon it. You can transform it, but you have to have something. Well, don't bother increasing this. It's disgusting. And Hermione's like, fine. Harry caught it. I cooked it. How about tomorrow? You do it. Okay? You can do the cooking, Ron. You can find the ingredients and try and charm them into something. Harry tells them to shut up. Okay? He hears voices. Well, what are the voices he hears? Nope.
Oh, no, it's the Tonks.
Dean Thomas, Ted Tonks.
Yeah.
Grip Hook. Okay. Dirk. I don't remember Dirk's last name. And what are they talking about? Okay, yeah, because they're out in the woods too. Okay, go to page 302. They've left, and Hermione pulls out Phineas Nigellus out of the her Mary Poppins bag. That's the only thing I can think of calling it. And they want to ask him about the Sword of Gryffindor. Why? Well, who got caught trying to steal the Sword of Gryffindor? And Ginny, Luna, and Neville. Where did they try and steal it from? Snape's office. Okay. So we heard them make a comment about Snape, and we're told on page 302, Snape might have thought, says Harry, Snape might have thought that was a punishment. What was the punishment Snape gave Ginny, Neville, and Luna? Same exact punishment Harry gets first book. To go into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. And I think Harry hears that and he's thinking, oh, wouldn't that be fun? To be able to go back into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. Snape might have thought that was a punishment, but Ginny, Neville, and Luna probably had a good laugh with Hagrid. The Forbidden Forest, they've faced plenty worse than the Forbidden Forest. Big deal. Notice Harry doesn't go one more step. Because what should come after big deal? No.
Maybe there's a reason he was alive.
He just said, Harry just said, they faced a whole lot worse than that. I mean, where, for an example? Ministry of Magic. They fought off dark wizards. Okay? He doesn't take the next step and say, I wonder why he gave them that punishment. Because what does Snape know about Hagrid? Know. Not think. He knows. Okay, what else? More obvious. He's a member of the Order of the Phoenix. Okay? So, he took 3 students. Snape's now a headmaster, right? He took 3 students who broke into his office, and what does he do? Sends them off with a member of the Order of the Phoenix. What could Snape do instead of that?
Umbridge's punishment.
Anything.
Let him go off with the, Amicus and Electo Caro and say, have fun, boys. What do you think they would do? Something sick and twisted, because that's the kind of... No, I don't even think they do that. I think they do something more sick and twisted, because that's the kind of people they are. Okay? He felt relieved. He'd been imagining horrors. The Cruciatus Curse at the very least. Okay? So, they make the connection. The sword can destroy Horcruxes. Okay? Hermione says, Harry, that sword's impregnated with basilisk venom. I mean, that's what he used to kill the basilisk. So they're thinking, all right, so now if we get the sword, we can destroy the one Horcrux we have. Ron gets off the bed, looks meaner than usual. Hermione tells him to take off the locket. And we get towards the end of the chapter, and Ron makes the comment to Harry, oh, you're sure, are you? Right then, well, I won't bother myself about that, meaning his parents, his family. It's all right for you two, isn't it? With your parents safely out of the way. Well, Hermione's parents are safely out of the way where? Australia.
Yeah.
Harry's parents are safely out of the way where?
Dead.
My parents are dead. Yeah, mine could be going the same way. So, Ron leaves. And notice, what does he ask before he leaves? Gonna come? Coming with me? No. Oh, I get it. You choose. No. What does Ron mean by you choose him? Jealous. He's, heart choosing. Hermione's like, you? No. Godric's Hollow. Godric. Anybody ever look up the name? Okay, names aren't accidental. I think some names are probably accidental, like the barman at the Leaky Cauldron, Tom. Tom, Dick, and Harry. He's faceless. Okay? Godric's Hollow, Godric Gryffindor. Think about that name for a moment. I don't know if I've ever put any of this up on the board. Gryffindor. What's it mean? Get up. Break it into its two component parts. Griffin, d'or. What's d'or mean? Of gold. Okay. What's a griffin?
It's a mythical creature.
Is it just a bird?
It's like a bird-lion mix.
Bird-lion mix. What kind of bird?
Eagle?
It's an not an eagle. It's an eagle and a lion mix. What are eagles and lions in their respective families?
Kind of the pinnacle of their...
King of the beasts, king of the air. Okay? Beasts down here on earth, eagles, air. But it's joined, right? It's the two things. Okay? And golden. Why isn't it griffin silver? Griffin's, black. Gold is pure. It's refined, etc. This is all part of the symbolism. Okay, this relates to Harry as, what's his nickname? The Chosen One. Okay. Griffins are, quote unquote, creatures in medieval literature and mythology. I mean, yeah, they go back to, ancient Greece and stuff. But in the Middle Ages, they're used as symbols. They're allegorical, like the phoenix is. They're allegories of Christ. How so? Christ is God, man. The joining together of God and man. The griffin is the joining together of the sky king and the earth king. The phoenix, every 500 years, poof, burns, and then out of the ashes, rises again. So it's taken to be symbolic of resurrection. You go to Shakespeare's church, not his personal, but the one he attended, in Stratford-on-Avon, or at least it was there several years ago, and you go look at the high altar, and on the high altar is this beautiful tapestry. It's a phoenix. It's not Jesus, it's not the cross, it's not Mary and Joseph, it's a phoenix. Why? Death and rebirth. Okay? Godric. Germanic name, God, which depending upon the pronunciation can be either God or good, Greek. We still hear this every now and then, okay, today in talking about history, especially something that happened in the early 20th century. You had the Third Reich. It's the Third Reich, the Third Kingdom. Which kingdom? The Roman Empire. That's what Hitler thought he was starting. Only this one was going to last 1,000 years. 14 if you go back to 1931. So he's going to Godric's Hollow. Now, being in the South, we're all familiar with hollers, because that's what this is. But it's what? It's like this. There's an old evangelical song, got the whole world in his hands. That's the hollow. I think J.K. Rowling is familiar with that. This is Godric's Hollow. And what does Harry discover here? Everything. This is where Harry hits bottom, by the way. I mean, bottom. As far bottom down as he can go. Because he has to. He's got to hit bottom before he can ride. He's got to burn ashes before he can, quote unquote, be reborn. Right? So, Harry's thinking, he's gone. I can't believe it. Ron's gone. Well, why can he not believe it? He should believe it, right? Book 4, he's ditched him before. I mean, pattern here. Okay? So, couple pages in, he could not hide it from himself. Ron had been right. Dumbledore had left him with virtually nothing. They discovered one Horcrux. And what happens? hopelessness threatened to engulf him. Love that pathetic fallacy, giving human emotions to hopelessness. It threatened, like it's on the march, like, Harry, I'm coming to get you. Well, it does. He was staggered. What does he know, he thinks? Nothing. I don't know anything. All I know is there's a bunch of Horcruxes. Dumbledore didn't give me any clues to finding them. Right? So, page 316. Harry starts to say, Hermione, I think we need to go to Godric's Hollow. And he says, I've been thinking. And she cuts him off. I need your help. And she shows him a mark in the Tales of Beedle the Bard. Harry goes, I don't know what it is. I've never seen it. I never took ancient rune. She goes, no, it's not an ancient rune. It's not an arithmancy either. Harry goes, oh, that's Grindelwald's mark. What? Well, Crumb told me. What do you mean? And so he says, we need to go to Godric's Hollow. And she goes, you're right, we do. Notice, Harry thinks he's going to have to argue about this. Okay? I mean, Godric's Hollow is Godric Gryffindor's birthplace. Harry, really? Duh. Gryffindor came from Godric's Hollow? Did you never open a history of magic? No, he didn't. So we read about Bathilda Bagshot and such. So, page 319, we're told he was about to go home. Home. What does the word connote? Not denote. What does it suggest? Belonging, safety, acceptance, origins, beginnings, where he ought to be. Number 4, Privet Drive, is never where Harry should be. Never. Okay? It's about as far away from where he should ever be. About to return to the place where he had a family. It was in Godric's Hollow that, but for Voldemort, he would have grown up and spent every school holiday. He could have invited friends to his house. He might have even had brothers and sisters. It would have been his mother who made his 17th birthday cake. The life he had lost had hardly ever seemed so real to him as at this moment. And he looks at pictures of his parents. So they go. And they arrive around 3:23. And we get a description. They take the cloak off. And they see the town square. Strung all around. Colored Christmas lights. There's snow. If you're familiar with Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life, this is like Bedford Falls. It's this picture of idyllic kind of middle America / middle England. It's a Thomas Kincaid painting in the middle of the snow. Okay? They hear laughter, and Hermione says, Harry, I think it's Christmas Eve. Is it? He'd lost track of the date. Notice, Hermione, I think, places importance on that. Harry's like, really? Big deal. I'm sure it is. Is she's looking at the church. Now, are they standing right in front of the church? No. They're here. Okay? Think of the square as being like this. They're here. The church is down here. They got to go across the square to where the church is. And she's looking at the church and says, they'll be in there, won't they? In there. What's the noun that's been most closely related to that? Church. Right? They'll be where? In the church. No. Your mom and dad. I can see the graveyard behind it. Hermione's taking the graveyard to be part of the church. Okay? It's all, quote unquote, church ground. So, they walk halfway across the square. In the middle of the square is a monument. You cannot go into literally any town in England without there being a monument. And the monument is to, usually, one of two things. The First World War and or the Second World War. The monument would have been put up after the First World War, and it will have names inscribed on it to all those from that town who died in the First World War. After the Second World War, sometimes what happens is they go around the rest of the monument and add the other names to all those who died in the Second World War. Or they build a second monument. Okay? So they're walking past the monument, which is an obelisk. And Hermione stops them as they get halfway across the square and says, Harry, look. She points at the war memorial. Now look at the description here. As they had passed, it transformed. Instead of an obelisk covered in names, there was a statue of three people. A man with untidy hair and glasses, a woman with long hair and a kind, pretty face, and a baby boy sitting in his mother's arms. Now, sitting, is she holding him and he's sitting upright like this? Head here? It's not usually how mothers carry babies. Okay? But that is the sitting description. Snow lay upon all their heads like fluffy white caps. What's the problem with the description? We're not told where else snow lay, right? That's the only place on their heads. Snow doesn't only, on a statue, it doesn't only fall on the head. Where else does it fall? Shoulders, arms. Why only on their heads?
Halos.
Bingo. These are like nimbuses or halos. What do we have? What kind? What evening is it? It's Christmas Eve. This is the Holy Family. This is Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, but not literally. It's James, Lily, and Harry, who are, for the Wizarding world, they are the equivalent of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. How do we know? What's Harry's nickname? The Chosen One. What is the Chosen One a translation of? You started to say it. Messiah. It's the Anointed One. Harry's the Messiah for the Wizarding world. Right? Harry draws closer. He looks up at his parents' faces. And he looks at himself. And it's like, oh, that's totally weird. How strange it was to see himself represented in stone. A happy baby without a scar. Well, when was this made? After. So why doesn't he have the scar?
The statue doesn't project the parents as dead.
Well, why else would it be there?
Harry was taken away, so I don't think anyone saw it,
Okay.
I suppose.
But it's there as
Bingo. It's presenting them in their ideal. Right? Because go to the other Holy Family. What do you not usually see? Though Michelangelo does the best of this. It's commonly regarded as the greatest work of human art ever. His Pietà, which is Mary cradling the dead body of Christ. He's just like this, gaping hole in the side, wounds in his hands. Okay? No. The portrayal is usually Mary, Joseph, and Jesus a little smiling baby. Not a little smiling baby with, hole ripped open in his side, because that's cruel or whatever. So, they keep walking. As they get closer and closer to the church, notice the music gets louder. Why? Basic physics. You get closer, those sound waves get packed up, they get louder and louder. What happens with the Doppler effect? Train goes by, sound waves get pulled out, and gradually you can't hear it. So they go into the churchyard, and Harry says, look, it's an abbot. Could be some long... And Hermione's like, shh, keep it down. Why? They're all dead. It's not like he's going to wake them. They go deeper and deeper into the churchyard. All right? Hermione says, Harry, here, is it? No. Look. Well, what is it? Kendra Dumbledore and her daughter. I always forget to do this. And we see space number. We see where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Okay? From, let's go. Wake up. I want to put this in a little bit more into context. This is Luke chapter 12. Okay? Verse 34. I don't want to go that far back. So, if you go back to still Luke 12, but go back to chapter 20, again, verse 22, what's Jesus talking about? Don't worry about the future. He says, for this reason I say to you, do not worry about your life as to what you will eat, nor for your body as to what to put on. Life is more than food, the body more than clothing. Think of the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. God feeds them. And what about you? You can't add an hour to your life by worrying about it. So why worry? Consider the lilies of the field. They grow. They neither toil nor spin. God clothes the grass in the field, etc., etc. Do not seek what you will eat and what you will drink. Well, it's one of the reasons why I left. He was tired of being hungry. Right? And what you will drink. Lost my place. And do not keep worrying. For all these things the nations of the world eagerly seek. But your Father knows that you need these things. Seek his kingdom, these things will be added to you. His kingdom. God, Rick, they're in the kingdom of God. The hollow of the kingdom of God. That's what the name means. Seek his kingdom. Do not be afraid, little flock. Sell your possessions, give to charity, make yourselves money belts which do not wear out. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Okay? Rita Skeeter and Muriel were right. Harry takes the tombstone to mean, okay, point, Rita Skeeter, Muriel. Dumbledore's got a 0. They're winning. Dumbledore ought to have told me, Harry thinks. We could have come here together. We could have visited this place. There's a bond between us. I never knew what it was. And he's like, where your treasure is, there will your heart. Did not understand what these words meant. Notice, Rowling doesn't add. For Harry had never attended church before. Because that's where he would hear about them. That's the only context he would have known. Are they reading, quote-unquote, biblical commentaries at Hogwarts? No, they're not. Okay? In fact, interestingly, when I do my Harry Potter course in London, and we go to places like Gloucester Cathedral, which is one of the places they filmed. You know, they filmed the cloisters. They used the cloisters for some of the hallways. Well, the cloisters are these areas, you know, with the great, nice carved stone walls and stuff, and they've got stained glass windows. Well, all the stained glass windows are saints' lives and stuff. They have to color all those out for the films. Why? Because you don't want somebody slowing down the film real close and going, wait a second, there at Hogwarts, there's an image of Noah in the ark. Well, how does that work? Because they're not believers. Okay? So, they keep going on. Harry, look. He's thinking, found him? It's that mark. Yeah, could be. In other words, Hermione, really? We're looking for my parents. I don't care about any stupid symbols. Page 326. But it says ignotus. I'm going to keep looking for my parents. So, he goes deeper and deeper into the graves. And as he goes deeper and deeper into the graves, you notice he gets farther and farther away from the church. The darkness, 326, I think. Yeah. The darkness and the silence seemed to become, all of a sudden, much deeper. Harry looked around, worried, thinking of Dementors. Why? because of what comes next. Then realized the carols had finished. So, the stopping of the singing of Christmas carols has what effect? The same as if Dementors come in. It's depressing. It takes away hope. So if the stopping of the Christmas carols takes away hope, what's the reverse?
That brings
Bingo. They bring hope. And these wouldn't be, Rudolph in a traditional English church. These are going to be Silent Night, Come All You Faithful, etc. Harry looked around. Okay, the churchgoers are now leaving. Somebody turned off the lights in the church. So not only is it kind of becoming, for Harry, mentally black, the lights are out. Harry, here they are. I'll pull up another one. Yes, that one was done. And 15, done. James Potter, born 27 March 1960, died 31 October 1981. Lily Potter, born 30 January 1960, died 31 October 1981. So Lily was older than James. Not that that's important. And Harry reads, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. Horrible thought came to him. Well, that's kind of a Death Eater idea. And Hermione's like, no, Harry. It means defeating death in the way that death... It doesn't mean defeating death in the way the Death Eaters mean it, Harry. She said it means, Notice that living beyond death. What's the problem? He doesn't know. You get the impression Hermione is I don't want to go that far. I don't want to say that Hermione, she has been to church. She is your quintessential, you go to church when? Easter, Christmas, and probably that's it. But during the Easter and Christmas services, she's heard this language. Okay? Well, what's this language? 1 Corinthians 15 is all about one idea. Resurrection. The whole chapter. It's in that chapter that Paul says, if Christ didn't rise from the dead, then we are the most to be pitied of all people. Why? Because we are wasting our time. I mean, if he didn't rise from the dead, then one, we're stupid. And two, we should change what we do. Live, man. Have fun. Stab the next person in the back. Get what you want out of life. Okay? 1 Corinthians 15:26. So he goes on and says, for since by a man came death, by a man also came the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, so also in Christ all will be made alive. He must reign, Christ, until he's put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be abolished is death. Harry. Yeah, that's all well and good, Hermione, is what he's thinking. But they're not living, thought Harry. They were gone. Where is he? Where is he physically standing? There's the tomb. Yeah, he might be literally standing right on the grave, and there's the tombstone. Or he might be, as is custom in English society, to stand off of the grave and to be reading the tombstone. Why? Because that's disrespectful to step on it. The empty words could not disguise the fact that his parents' moldering remains lay beneath snow and stone, indifferent, unknowing. Because notice, here he doesn't see, hey, Harry. He doesn't see his mother crying and James reaching around and comforting her. He doesn't hear whispering voices and see a veil moving. Here, dead. Why? Because in those two worlds, in this world, gone. Physically, gone. He will never touch his parents again. He'll never literally, I think, even though we see the resurrection stone stuff later, with these ears, hear their voices again. Right? Hiding from his eyes the place where the last of Lily and James lay, bones now surely are dust, not knowing or caring that their living son stood so near, his heart still beating, alive because of their sacrifice, close to wishing at this moment, back with the mirror bear said, that he was sleeping under the snow with them. Do they know? Well, my interpretation of the books is if we take the Mirror of Erised more seriously than what Dumbledore says, if we take the forms coming out of the wand at the end of book 4, if we take the whispering behind the veil in book 5, yes, they know. Hermione takes his hand, grips it. Why? What's happened to Harry at this point? I mean, he's just tears just running. Why? How old is he? He's 17, right? He's been living without his parents for 16 years. Some crass, hard, gray moron like myself would say, suck it up, kid. I mean, you dealt with your parent. That's the problem. He hasn't dealt with it. He's never gotten closure. This is closure. This is what would happen to the relatives of the people from that Malaysian airline several years ago that disappeared over the Indian Ocean. If they were to find the wreckage and find portions of bodies, bones, there would be burial services. Why? For that sense of closure. Just as, foreshadowing, careful if you need Kleenex or whatever, when Harry buries Dobby. Harry needs closure. That's why he buries Dobby how?
Manually.
By hand. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny, but they're always talking about death as sleeping. Because, like, when Dumbledore, there he could be sleeping, and then closing Dobby's eyes, there he could be sleeping.
Well, sleep is an old metaphor for death. Even, ancient Greece, India, etc. Yeah, everybody, a lot of writers use sleep as a metaphor. Why? Because when you're asleep, you are, for all intents and purposes, dead to the world. We use that phrase. I was dead to the world. Meaning, I didn't wake up at all. Okay? I've known people,
Eternal slumber.
I'm from California, and, earthquakes don't really bother me that much. I've known people who could sleep through a 6.0 earthquake. Okay, a 6.0 earthquake would have this thing doing this. Okay. That thing would probably, no, it's been like this. That thing would probably fall off the, been in my folks' house, my dad would have had swords hanging from the ceiling. And we'd watch the pool, and the water, which would normally be 6 to 12 inches below the side, would slosh out the side. Rocking and rolling earthquakes. And I know people who sleep right through them. Never.
That's crazy.
Right?
That's the way to go.
We had like a little tiny earthquake in Illinois once. And my mom was like, oh my God! Get under the doorway!
Several years ago, there was one, in Middle Tennessee, it was like a 3.1 or something. They're saying, it could have something to do with the Madrid, because when the new Madrid fault rips, all bets are off. So, Hermione helps him gain control. She gives him, she does the little Christmas wreath and everything. And Harry puts it on his parents' grave. Okay, that's all nice. Next chapter, Bathilda's secret. So, they go off to Bathilda Bagshot's house. Well, Harry does. Hermione stays outside. And what happens? We're going to skip most of it. Surprise, yeah. Not Bathilda Bagshot. She's a slimy little serpent. And what's the upshot of that chapter? Is the chapter important because of Nagini and all that? No. Is it because of what Harry hears? No. Why is the chapter important? One thing happens to him. Nope. Bingo. He loses his wand. What is the wand for Harry? It's the only thing I'm going for me, right? Because what does he think about love? He's not going to kiss Voldemort to death, you know? Okay? What does he think about his uncommon skill? He doesn't have one. He loses his ability to do what? Expelliarmus. He is, essentially, Expelliarmus. He might as well lose his arms because he can't hold the wand in his mouth and do it. That's where Harry reaches bottom. He has lost all hope there. How do you know? Okay, what day was that? That was Christmas Eve. Okay, so next morning the sun comes up. It's Christmas morning. The sun was coming up. The pure, colorless vastness of the sky stretched over him, indifferent to him and his suffering. What is the sky being used as a metaphor for there? It's horrible English. The world, the universe. What does the universe think about Harry? Nothing. Nothing. It doesn't think about him at all. Why? Because the universe is impersonal and cold and meaningless. And Nietzsche was right. And then you die. There is no meaning to life. Period. Harry sat down in the tent entrance and took a deep breath of clean air. What does he see? What does the narrator say? Notice the narrator isn't taking us in Harry's mind here. The narrator is making an editorial comment. The narrator is kind of telling us, come on, Harry, open your eyes. Simply to be alive, to watch the sun rise over the sparkling snowy hillside, ought to have been the greatest treasure on earth. Yet he could not appreciate it. Why not? Boo-hoo, woe is me, I lost my stick. It's it. And again, it's Christmas morning. Well, what has Harry gotten? Every other Christmas morning for the last 6 years, he's gotten presents. Here's his present. You lose everything. Okay, he still has Hermione. Woo! She can cook for him, you know. He doesn't have the thing he thinks that makes him a wizard. His wand. He loses This is Harry's total, what's called kenosis. Self-emptying. Okay? And without realizing it, he looks out over this valley, blanketed in snow. This is, the hills of Scotland, let's say. I mean, Thomas Kincaid image again. Or a Norman Rockwell image of New England. Christmas Day, little church down in and he hears what? He hears the bells. Why are the bells ringing? It's Christmas morning. They're ringing people to come to church. Without realizing it, he's digging his fingers into his hands, into his arms. He had spilled his own blood. More time, not an accident, this comes on Christmas morning, more times than he could count. He'd lost all the bones in his right arm once. Yeah, but that wasn't his fault. That was a moron's fault. Okay? Nor was that an attack of some kind. Well, what else? This journey had given him scars to his chest. Where did he get a scar to his chest? When Scrimgeour did the wand and burned the hole in his shirt, it did get him. Forearm to join those on his hand and forehead. Well, what are the only wounds he's missing to really identify with Christ? Hands and feet. Okay? But never had he felt himself fatally weakened, vulnerable, naked. Hermione didn't understand. She hadn't felt the wand spin. He had lost protection of the twin cores. Twin. Kind of like that twin again? Huh. So, Harry thanks her. I'd be dead if you hadn't been there to help me. So they read. They read about what? Dumbledore and Grindelwald. And in reading about Dumbledore and Grindelwald, Harry reads from the original letter Dumbledore wrote to Grindelwald. Gellert, your point about wizard dominance being for the Muggles' own good, it's a crucial point. Yes, we've been given power. Yes, that power gives us the right to rule. But it also gives us responsibilities. This is the point we have to do it. Why? For the greater good. Well, where was for the greater good inscribed? Over Nurmengard, where Grindelwald ruled. Nurmengard. Sound at all similar to anything in the real world? Nuremberg. Well, what was Nuremberg? It's where the trials were held. Why were they held in Nuremberg? It's because that's where Hitler had his largest rallies. That's where he roused the German people. So, nice little bit of closure here. This is where you rose to power. This is where you're going down. Where did Grindelwald get sentenced to? Nurmengard. Okay. Hermione, after they finish reading, Harry, he shakes his head. Why? Just don't. Don't. He had trusted Dumbledore and believed him the embodiment of goodness and wisdom. The embodiment. If he's the embodiment of goodness and wisdom, then that would mean Dumbledore couldn't what? Make a mistake. And yet, what did he repeatedly tell Harry? I make mistakes. Big ones? Yeah. All was ashes. The idol he created, poof. The life he had, essentially, Harry, poof. What's he have to do? Start all over. Why? Because all of these false images he had created for himself have been destroyed. So what does he need to do? Discover the real images. He has to discover the reality behind them. He has to be reborn. He's got to rise from these ashes. Okay? Well, so what does Hermione tell him? They keep talking about Nurmengard for the greater good, Dumbledore, Grindelwald. And what does Hermione come down to? What is her proof to Harry? It's what Hagrid says in Book 4. It's what we also hear beginning in Book 2. He changed, Harry. It's Dumbledore's. It is not what we're born to be. That is, the abilities we have. It's what we choose. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are. Far more than our abilities. Because what are Dumbledore's abilities? Off the scale. And what could he have done with those abilities? Ruled the world. Okay? He chose not to. He changed, Harry. He changed. It's page 362. It is as simple as that. Maybe he did believe these things when he was 17. How old's Harry? 17. But the whole of the rest of his life was devoted to fighting the dark arts. Dumbledore was the one who stopped Grindelwald, the one who always voted for Muggle protection. What's the point? Everyone can change. Why is that significant? What does Hagrid say about Dumbledore, Book 4? He gives everyone what? Second chances. And third chances. And fourth chances. How many chances does he give Malfoy? Draco, not Lucius. But even Lucius, cuts him some slack. And Snape. Harry, look what he asked from me, Hermione. Risk your life, Harry, and again and again. Don't expect me to explain everything. Just trust me blindly. Trust me blindly means what? What other single word? Faith. Trust that I know what I'm doing. Trust me even though I don't trust you. Is it that Dumbledore didn't trust Harry? No, it's not. Never the whole truth. Harry felt as though they were as insignificant as insects beneath the wide sky. What's he really thinking? Why me? Why did he choose me? Why didn't I get a time turner go back and make him choose Neville? What did Dumbledore say in talking with Harry about what if you had never heard about the prophecy, Harry? What would you want to do? Well, I'd still want to stop him. Bingo, that's it. Why? It's because of that love. Okay. Notice, they stand looking at each other in the whiteness and the emptiness. Where else in this book are we going to see Harry in some place that is described as whiteness and emptiness? King's Cross. And what is that place? Limbo, purgatory-like, gateway. Because when we get there, we won't, but if you watch any other of the lectures, what is that place? Train station. To go where? On
River Styx.
or back? Notice, you can go on or you can go back. If he goes on, what will you find? Oh, I don't know, Harry. The next great adventure. Or you can go back and try to stop Voldemort forever. Guess what? Harry, right here, he's essentially at the same place. He can go on, or he can do what? What would going back mean? Go back to number 4 Privet Drive and go, hello, Voldemort, I'm here, come kill me. It'd just be sitting down and doing nothing. Just sit and wait for him to come. Okay? What comes next? The Silver Doe. And what happens?
Well, Harry finds the sword and
In that big pile of ash, the little bird is reborn. Harry's faith comes back. Why? Because of the Silver Doe. Notice, he's sitting in the tent at night. They're in the Forest of Dean. Why? Because J.K. Rowling used to play there as a child. She's familiar with it. And we're told Harry felt as though he was recuperating from some brief but severe illness. Yeah, I bet. 2 nights of little sleep, Harry's senses seem more alert than usual. So it's the 3rd night. This is again, it's a baptismal kind of, this is the being reborn on the 3rd day. And what does he see as he looks out there? There's a light. He sees the light. Now, Harry is obviously not me. Because there's all kinds of people looking for him, right? What does he do? Ooh, shiny light. I'll go chase it. He follows it. He realizes it's a doe. Why does he go after it? Mom was a doe. And he follows it, and it leads him to a puddle. A frozen pool of water. He holds his wand up. Actually, it's Hermione's wand. Holds her wand up. And the surface of the water has been cracked. It's frozen, but the ice has been cracked, and it's refrozen. He holds it up, and what does he see? We're told a great silver cross. That's his first thinking. It's a cross. A glint of deep red. A cross with blood. No, it's a sword with glittering rubies. But the first description, cross with blood. Sacrifice imagery, okay? It's not accidental, folks. That's the sword of Godric Gryffindor. What does he know he can already do with that?
Destroy the locket.
Where is the locket?
Around his neck.
He's wearing it around his neck. And so he goes, I'm sure it won't work, but Oxio sword? Not going to be that easy. What does he have to do to get it?
Completely submerge himself.
He has to completely submerge himself. He can't just break the ice. Because what else could he then try? Slip down in, because, body is longer than his arm. Get it with the foot. Try to, pull it up so he doesn't. Because, if you've ever been in water that's been covered with ice, it's cold. When is this? We're told it is several days after Christmas. We're not told how many. I find it kind of interesting, however, because there is a religious ritual on January 6th in a huge branch of the Christian church, the Orthodox Church, okay, for the Feast of Theophany, where you have the Great Blessing of the Waters. And what happens in the Great Blessing of the Waters? The priest goes out, says a bunch of prayers, puts the sign of the cross, etc., and then throws a cross into the water for the brave, hardy souls who want to jump in and go after. Now, when you're living in Tarpon Springs, Florida, and they're doing that in the Gulf of Mexico, oh, that's so hard, because the water's cold then. It's like 75. Or if you're living off the Mediterranean, oh, poor baby. But when you're living in Vladivostok, Russia, or Sebastopol, Crimea, and you have to break through the ice to throw the cross in, and then jump into it to get it, then it's a lot harder. But that's the exact image he gives us here. Right? So he jumps in and starts getting strangled. Why?
That necklace is like,
Because Slytherin and Gryffindor don't mix. And who is her language, not mine, savior? Ron. Are you meant? It's a classic Ron, Okay. So, Ron rescues him. Ron destroys the locket. What happens before Ron destroys the locket? What does the locket attempt to do?
corrupt his mind.
Corrupt him, turn him. No, don't kill me. Right? Is it the whole blue screen, thing that's in the film? This part I do remember.
Like, ooh.
Harry and Hermione, over there behind the bushes. No, even though it does say, she did choose you. Well, that's all in Ron's mind anyways. Okay? So how well does Hermione accept Ron back? Yeah, not at all at first.
Where's my wand?
Okay? So, chapter 20, Xenophilius Lovegood. Love of others, love the good, as we talked about. Okay? So, we find out from Xenophilius about the Deathly Hallows. We get the tale of the three brothers, and we come to understand why Dumbledore gave Hermione the book. Who are the three brothers? What are their names?
Ignatius.
Ignotus, Cadmus, and Antioch. Ignotus, Cadmus, and Antioch. Three very old names in history and literature. Okay? Ignotus is a form of Ignatius.
Saint Ignatius.
Like unknown.
Yeah. Which one, though? Because there are multiple Saint Ignatiuses, but there is a Saint Ignatius of Antioch, okay, who was a very early bishop. He was like third in line after John the Beloved, etc., who wrote a series of 7 letters as he was on his way to be martyred in Rome. When he was martyred in Rome, this takes us back to Harry and the arena, he marched into the arena. His friends tried to buy off his freedom. They paid the guards to release him. He said, "Stop." For the simple reason, according to St. Ignatius, he wanted to be what he called a true Christian. What does that mean? Die. Christ died for me. To be like him, I have to do the same. I've got to do the same. That's the marching into the arena, head held high. Okay? So, what difficulty do they have with Xenophilius Lovegood? And I'm not talking about, the Death Eaters kind of stuff. How does he take the tale of Beetle the Bard, the tale of the three brothers?
Literally.
It's true. Who has the hardest part with that?
Hermione.
Why?
It's a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale. Can't be true. Facts are true.
And the horn on his wall.
Well, yeah, he's got the crumple horn sticker snack or whatever it's called. Okay.
Stickers.
It's not real. How does he get her to open her mind a little bit, let's say about the resurrection stone? What does she say? He says, "Prove to me that it's not real." And she says, "Well, you mean I need to go examine every stone?" Well, that's... And he says, "Glad to see you're starting to open your mind a little bit." What's his point? What's Rowling's point? I think. I could be completely wrong here, but I don't think I am.
Just because you can't find evidence doesn't mean it's not there.
Okay.
If you can't disprove it, then there's still that inkling that it might be true. Like, you have to leave room for that. You can't 100% disprove it.
She is acknowledging, she is suggesting that what we see around us is not the whole truth. That's it. She is saying the universe is more than what we can see and evaluate. In other words, Stephen Hawking was wrong. This isn't all there is. Dumbledore is right. Death is the next great adventure. There is more. Prove that there isn't. Well, you can't. Glad to see you're opening your mind a little bit. In other words, you're starting to say the world is much bigger than you ever thought it could be. As Hamlet tells Horatio, there is more in heaven and earth than is dreamt of in your philosophy. Why? Horatio is a Stoic. Stoics say, this is all there is. This is it. Nothing else. You die, and your body decomposes, and what you think of as your soul isn't real. It is merely, according to modern science, electrochemical reactions in the brain, and it dissipates, and that's it. You check out. Nothing goes on. Okay? This seems to imply otherwise. Okay? So, let's see here. The Deathly Hallows. What's another one of his little proofs? Talk to me about an invisibility cloak that does X, Y, and Z, and they're kind of like, well, okay. Yeah, okay. Got one. The invisibility cloak is the Deathly Hallow. What are the other two? The Resurrection Stone, they don't know where that is, and the Elder Wand. So they know where one is. So Harry starts thinking, Hallows, Horcruxes. Hallows, Horcruxes. I want to go for Hallows. Who wants which Hallow? Why? Ultimate power, Okay. Why does Hermione want the invisibility cloak? Okay. Why else? She never explains.
She's never lost anybody that she would want to bring back.
Okay.
She doesn't really have a thirst for power.
Okay.
I think it has more to do with the wise brother.
She's the smart. Are smarts the equivalent to wisdom?
No, but maybe she recognizes that.
Maybe she needs to gain a little wisdom. What problem does Hermione have at school? Why? I think you're right, but why?
It's like emotional intelligence.
What does she do every class? Every question.
I know.
Before they even finish.
What's the cloak confer? anonymity. Everybody knows who she is. Not like everybody knows who Harry is, but it's pretty obvious why Harry wants the stone. Everybody he loves is dead. Well, except for Ginny, Hermione, Ron, Hagrid, a few others. So, they get taken off to Malfoy Manor. Does Malfoy lie to protect Harry? Does Malfoy recognize Harry? What do you think? Text doesn't make it clear. I think he does. Why?
He stared at him for
Yeah.
6 years.
So if he does lie to protect Harry, why?
He's changing.
He's changing. He's in the process of changing. Okay. Why else? Well, why might he be changing?
He's realized what Voldemort is doing.
I mean, he's been Voldemort's gun/toy for a while. Okay.
Learning to make decisions for himself.
Learning to make decisions. What would his father do if he knew this was Harry, in fact? It's yours, man. I'll give him to you on a platter. Okay?
Ron and Hermione are there.
It's like this small act of rebellion. He's like, I'm going to preserve what good I can. Even though I've gotten myself so deep into this.
Okay.
It kind of keeps his soul whole.
Draco's expression was full of reluctance, even fear, as he comes right up to Harry's face. I don't know, he says. Where do we see this echoed later on? Is he dead? Draco still alive? Yes. Yes, Lord, he's dead.
Dead.
Notice what doesn't happen there.
Nobody questions it.
No. Don't lie to me. Lord Voldemort always knows when someone... And she lies through her teeth. Okay? So, a couple minutes we have left. Wormtail comes down to get them. Hermione's been tortured. Harry, you're going to kill me? After I saved your life? You owe me, Wormtail. And the silver fingers slacken. And what does Harry try?
To protect.
Try, but he can't. Without pausing to think, Harry tried to drag back the hand, but there was no stopping it. The silver tool that Voldemort had given his most cowardly servant had turned upon its disarmed... There it is again. His disarmed and useless owner. Pettigrew was reaping his reward for his hesitation, his moment of pity. So, how do they all get out? Dobby. They land at Shell Cottage, and Harry looks around, and there's Dobby, swaying. Dobby, no help. Dobby's final words, Harry Potter. He had stretched out his thin arms to Harry with a look of supplication. What is a look of supplication? Prayer. That's what supplication means. Help me, Harry Potter. You're my only hope. So, and he dies. Okay? Oh, man, I hate doing this. The elf had gone where he could not call him back. Come on, Dobby. You're mostly dead. Here, let's get...
Give me the tips.
Grief for Dobby, notice, grief for Dobby diminished Harry's rage, and so he buries. And what happens to Harry while he's burying Dobby? Boom. Understanding blossoms. How? What's the understanding? Maybe Dumbledore knew. Maybe Dumbledore knew Ron would leave, and that's why he gave him the Deluminator. Maybe Dumbledore knew I needed to seek and not know. And so I've got to what? Continue seeking without knowing. What must Harry now show? Bingo. He can't know All right, we'll stop there. I'll put up a lecture or two for those twisted of you who are interested in what I have to say. Of course.